And now Stellantis is sitting on a bloated inventory.
It's $100,000 now. So he's not going to buy the truck. It's going to sit on my lot at the higher interest rates we're paying right now for floor plan, and nobody's going to buy the truck.
The untold story of unsold cars. Have you ever driven past a car dealership and seen rows and rows of brand new cars just sitting there? It makes you wonder, what happens to the ones that never get sold? Do they get shipped back to the factory? Do they get crushed into scrap metal? Or do they just sit there forever? And here's the kicker. In the current market conditions, more car models are idling at dealer lots than ever before. Take the Dodge Charger, for example. Right now, dealerships have over 6,800 unsold Chargers with an average market day supply of 312 days. That means at the current rate of sales, these cars will sit for almost a year before they're sold. And the Charger isn't alone. Models like the Ford Bronco and Infiniti QX80 are also struggling to move off dealership lots. So, what happens to these cars when there are no buyers? Today, we're getting into the hidden fate of unsold vehicles in the U.S. Before we get into it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get started. To understand what happens to unsold cars, you first need to know how dealerships actually operate. Contrary to what people believe, car dealerships don't own the cars outright. Instead, they finance them just like you and me. The dealership takes out a loan to stock their lot with new vehicles, paying the manufacturer up front. That means every single car sitting there is costing the dealership money in interest, insurance, and space. So, if a car sits too long without selling, it becomes a financial burden. Dealers don't have the luxury of just holding on to inventory indefinitely. They need to turn those cars over fast to avoid losing money. But here's the catch. They can't return the cars to the manufacturer. Once the dealership buys them, they're stuck with them. One of the biggest challenges car makers and dealerships face is predicting consumer demand. Car manufacturers produce vehicles based on expected sales forecast and trends, but they don't always get it right. A new model that seemed like a great idea in concept may turn out to be a model nobody wants. To avoid this, usually dealerships monitor inventory turnover rates. The industry standard is to sell a car within 60 to 90 days of receiving it. But what happens when a car sits too long? Let's break down the 4 major ways dealerships move unsold inventory. Tactic number 1, price drops and incentives. The most common and obvious way to sell slow-moving inventory is to lower the price. A good example? Ford Escape. According to Car Edge data, dealerships across the U.S. are sitting on nearly 58,000 unsold units with a market supply exceeding 6 months. To combat this oversupply, dealerships are rolling out aggressive discounts and massive incentives to attract buyers. And it's not just the dealers themselves. Manufacturers also step in to help. If a particular model isn't selling well, the car company might offer additional incentives to help dealers move inventory. These could include 0% financing for a limited time, cash back offers, employee pricing deals, enticing lease offers. In addition, some dealers offer bundle deals like free maintenance packages, extended warranties, or special trade-in bonuses. Anything that gives buyers extra value without drastically cutting into dealerships' profits. But what if discounts aren't enough? That's when things get interesting. Tactic number 2, turning new cars into pre-owned cars. If a car refuses to sell, some dealerships take an unconventional approach. They turn it into a used car. How? By putting it into their loaner fleet. Most dealerships offer loaner cars for customers who bring in their vehicles for service. If a brand new car isn't selling, they might use it as a temporary loaner for a few months. After it's been driven by customers, it officially becomes a used car, even though it has barely any mileage. Once a car is classified as used, dealerships can list it at a lower price. And since used cars tend to sell faster than new ones, this strategy helps move old inventory without resorting to drastic losses. Another variation of this strategy is giving the car to employees as a demo vehicle. A sales manager might drive it for a few months, then return it to the lot as a slightly used vehicle with a price cut. Dealerships also have certified pre-owned CPO programs, which allow them to sell these former loaners or demo cars as high-quality used vehicles with manufacturer-backed warranties. Buyers love these because they get a nearly new car for a fraction of the original price. But if that still doesn't work, the dealership has more tricks up its sleeve. Tactic number 3, trading cars between dealerships. Car demand isn't the same everywhere. A convertible might sell quickly in Florida, but sit untouched in Minnesota. That's why dealerships sometimes trade vehicles with one another. If a car isn't selling in one region, it might be worth more in another. A dealership in New York could trade a slow-selling luxury sedan to a dealership in California where demand is higher. This helps both dealers clear unwanted inventory while getting something in return. Trading between dealers is common for specialty models, specific trims, or colors that might not have been the right fit for a particular location. But what if a car still can't find a home? That's when it gets sent to auction, one of the last resort options. Tactic number 4, the auction option. Sending a car to auction is often the last resort for dealerships, but it's a huge industry that most car buyers never even hear about. These auctions happen daily, with thousands of cars being bought and sold between dealers. But not all auctions are the same. There are 2 main types. 1, closed auctions. These are exclusive to franchised dealerships of a particular brand. For example, Ford might hold a Ford-only auction, allowing Ford dealerships to bid on unsold inventory. This helps keep their resale values stable. Number 2, open auctions. Any licensed dealer can participate, making it a free-for-all where prices can drop fast. Used car lots often buy their inventory from open auctions at steep discounts. There are a few primary marketplaces for car auctions, the largest being Manheim, owned by Cox Automotive. If a car is unsold, odds are high it ends up at a regional Manheim auction, and odds are even higher that some dealership somewhere buys it. However, cars that go to auction rarely sell at full price. Most dealers take a loss, but it's still better than holding on to a car that's draining money in financing costs. Here's an interesting fact. Rental car companies are some of the biggest buyers at auctions. If you've ever rented a car, there's a chance it started as a slow-selling vehicle at a dealership, was auctioned off, and then entered the rental fleet. But there's one more fate that unsold cars can meet, and it's probably the most shocking of them all. What about cars that never even reach dealerships? So far, we've talked about what happens to cars already at dealerships. But what about cars that never even make it to the lot? Sometimes, manufacturers produce too many cars of a specific model only to realize demand isn't there. A perfect example, the recent oversupply of certain models of electric vehicles. Instead of flooding dealerships with these unwanted inventory, automakers take a different approach. Like 1. Storage facilities. Believe it or not, some manufacturers store thousands of unsold cars in massive lots waiting for demand to catch up. 2. Exports to other countries. Some cars that don't sell well in the U.S. market are shipped to international markets where demand is higher. A car that's unpopular in the U.S. might be a hot commodity in South America, Africa, or Asia. 3. Recycling and scrapping. In rare cases, manufacturers decide to destroy unsold cars. Why? Because selling them at extreme discounts would hurt the brand's value. Instead, they scrap the vehicles, salvage useful parts, and write off the loss. So, next time you see a car sitting at a dealership for months or years, remember, it won't stay there forever, but that doesn't always mean it will find a home. The bottom line, no matter how unpopular, expensive, or outdated, every car eventually sells, one way or another. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What's the best car deal you've ever seen? Let's talk about it in the comments.